Alright, so what I have here is a Weber 3236 progressive 2-barrel carburetor, and I am going to be putting it on my 1950 Plymouth to replace the Carter ball and ball. I had to put this adapter on here. The adapter I got from, I can't remember if I got it on Amazon or not, but it is this one here. It's a Transdapt 2-inch carburetor spacer, and it is the 2025. The holes here that meet up to the base of this Weber needed to be grinded out just ever so slightly to fit the pattern. It took me about 3 minutes with a little grinding tool on the end of a Dremel, and just opened it up just enough to line it up. And anyway, here I chose to use these shoulder bolts with these, I forget what they're called, but they have little free spinning star washers down at the bottom of them to grip them tight, and get a nice tight seal around that spacer, or adapter rather. And this came from Langdon's stove bolt, and when I talked to him on the phone, we went through the application that I have, and he sent me one that was already set up with the proper throttle linkage. So this will pull in the same way that my stock one does, and I just have to attach my linkage to whichever one of these will give me a full open. But it is a progressive 2-barrel. You get the one open there, and then the second one open at full throttle here. Let's see what else is there. It's set up here. I got the one with the manual choke, so I got to set up a choke cable there to make that work. And that's pretty much it. It has this fuel inlet here. It's a little bit different than the stock one, where it uses a barbed end. If I can get it off here with one hand. Go. Uses the barbed end, so you have to put your fuel line on there and use a hose clamp. And all right, well, I'm gonna go remove the old Carter ball and ball, and then get back on putting this on. All right, so the old carburetor's off, and here's the gasket here. Goes to the manifold. The way this is set up, like I said before, is that the linkage is on the same side as the stock carb, fuel line is on the same side as the stock carb, and this adapter has a 4-way base, so you can set it on there. And just to be clear, Langdon also sells an adapter. I just already had the adapter from a different application, and I just chose to make it work for this one. So anyway, I'm going to set it on here like this in the stock position, so that I have access to my fuel line and my throttle linkage on the stock sides. And I will attach these nuts here. I can get them, kind of a tight squeeze. Come on. just a couple threads. Okay, so I finally got the nuts to sit in there and clear. There's a little bump out on the adapter here that creates a little bit of trouble, but if you finagle it a little bit, you can get it to fit. So just work this on its way down. One thing that I'm not a big fan of on this adapter is these pieces here that extend out from the other orientation, but I can deal with it, at least for now. If I can find another option later, maybe I'll swap it out. But for now, this is the one that I've got. So we got that on there. Gonna need to find a smaller 9/16 to get in there. So I was able to find this little thing. I always save these kind of weird tools whenever I get them with, you know, some sort of IKEA furniture or something like that. You never know when they're going to come in handy. But anyway, a little screwdriver on the end, different size fittings here, and this fit right in there with just enough clearance to rotate it. So that came in handy. All right. So Langdon's sends you this little throttle linkage extension. So I just need to do the measuring and measure out. This is the original one here, and that is actually, looks like it's going to be a perfect fit for this. In, let's see, at rest, it looks like it's going into the middle one. At fully extended, it'll go, let me see. Alright, it's not going to be a perfect fit. What I realize here, this hole, or sorry, the little bolt here, is skinnier than the stock one to fit into the original, or the carburetor hole. So I'm going to have to take this off here and see if this threading matches. And if it matches, we're golden. There we go. So this will go there, and this will go into the throttle linkage. Now it's just a matter of adjusting how it's going to pull and how it's going to open up for my particular application. You know, if your throttle linkage is different than my 50, I might take a little bit of adjustment. So I'm going to set this down into the middle hole. Let's see if we can get this over here. So the Weber linkage here is this big plate with a bunch of different options. So I believe I can fit this into the center option here. If I can get that nice and tight, we'll be good. But I ran out of thread. All right, so that's not going to be the right option for me this time around. All right, well, I will figure out what I need to do with that, and I'll be right back. So I just got off the phone with Tom Langdon, and he sends you this piece and this piece here with this jam nut, and it's the same threading as your original rod here. I was able to get this on and get it to fit technically, you know, but it's only on by like 2 threads. So I used the jam nut and I put some thread locker on there to make it work. So for now, you know, just for test purposes and all of that, I'll be using it that way. But when I spoke to him on the phone, he told me that this thing is sent to you with the whole carburetor kit, and it's supposed to be cut down and welded to your original rod to fit your application. So just a side note, you know, this fits into the head that he sent you, plus welding it to the end so that you're not just running on 2 threads. So that's that. Just a little side note. Don't throw that away, even if you think you have enough length on the rod here, because it may not be enough. My hard fuel line here, because I had a hard fuel line just going straight into the old ball and ball, and I didn't want to lose my fuel pressure gauge and my glass bowl here. So for now, just for test purposes and everything else, I put in just a rubber line right here, and you know, this is going to be a little bit wobbly, but it'll at least get me started. I connected the throttle linkage to here down to this hole, which works well for my particular setup. So if you look down in here, if we can get enough light in there, it opens up the first one and then kicks into the secondary. So opens up first, kicks into the secondary, and I have plenty of room to make that happen. Choke is wide open, and I guess we'll see what happens when I start it up in just a second. So I decided I didn't want to hold off and do the welding of that rod, so I got a coupler here and attached it with some thread locker and put in a piece of all thread here with the jam nut on the thread, or on the coupler, and put a little bit of thread locker on this thing here. I also had to I carved a little groove in the bottom of this rod here, and I put a little C-clip to hold that in, because the angle here is steeper than it is on the stock one. So I just wanted to make sure that, you know, lots of movement here in the bell crank didn't lift this up out of the bell crank. You know, you'd end up with no throttle at all on the road. So there's that. All right, guys, check this out. So that whirring sound that's going on, I think it's my fan belt here going into my water pump and my alternator. I just replaced my alternator, and I don't think I tightened it all the way, or it's kind of shaking loose or something, so I gotta fix that up. But there you have it. Conversion from a Carter ball and ball to a Weber 3236 from Langdon.